So for decades now, Florida State football program is accustomed to winning, as under Bobby Bowden, they won 2 national titles, and under Jimbo Fisher, they won 1 national title. And since Jimbo left for Texas A&M, they've had 2 head coaches. Willie Taggart, who we all know how he was as a Florida State head coach, and after Willie Taggart, they decided to hire Mike Norvell. Now, right now, Norvell has the Florida State Seminoles looking like championship contenders, but I want to take a look at how Norvell made the Seminoles championship contenders again. But before I talk about Mike Norvell at Florida State, I want to say like and subscribe. Now, before Norvell was at Florida State, he was at Memphis, where he ended his tenure there 38-15 and making a bowl game all 4 years. And on December 8th, 2019, Mike Norvell became Florida State's head coach. The only problem is Norvell's first season was going to be in 2020, in which 2020 was the season where there was no fans and there was no spring game, no spring training camps, and no fall training camps. And things got even weirder when FSU only had 9 games that season, so they would have less games and less chances to make a bowl game that season. Now, through Norvell's first 5 games that season in 2020, the team went 2-3. Now, this included 2 of the 3 losses to number 12, Miami, and to number 5, Notre Dame. But they did get a win the week after losing to Notre Dame against North Carolina, which North Carolina at that time was ranked number 5. But the good thing is, through the first 5 games, they start to find something, as their future quarterback, Jordan Travis, will start to come onto the scene and will start looking like the future quarterback for the next couple of years. Now, in that North Carolina game where they upset North Carolina, Travis will total for 298 yards and 3 touchdowns that game. The thing is, though, that after they upset North Carolina, they dropped their next 3 games. The good thing is, though, they ended their season on a high note as they beat Duke. Now, we all know Duke in 2020 was far from a football school, although they was also far from a basketball school as well. But they dropped 56 points on Duke and rushed for 343 yards. And then the offseason, Norvell finished with the 23rd recruiting class. And that class included guys like Patrick Payton, Kevin Knowles II, and Jermaine Johnson, who will all be pivotal pieces going into the future. Now, going into the 2021 season, FSU was expected to be a better team, and that showed in game 1 against Notre Dame. Now, against the Fighting Irish, Florida State lost, but they lost in overtime 38-41. And that game ended with some quarterback controversy, as Jordan Travis got hurt and Mackenzie Milton stepped in for him, who hasn't played in the game for almost 2 years, and he led Florida State to a comeback that led to overtime. So Milton took most of the quarterback snaps the next game against Jacksonville State. And that Jacksonville State game is arguably the most memorable game of Mike Norvell's tenure because of the wrong reasons, though. As on the final play, Jacksonville State would complete a Hail Mary for a touchdown, making this one of the most embarrassing losses by FBS school to an FCS school in the last decade. And after that game, they dropped their next 2 games to Wake Forest and Louisville. That had them sitting at 0-4, but good thing is, through their next 7 games, they rattled off 5 wins. So they were sitting at 5-6, and they're going to be playing their in-state rival in Florida, as all they needed was another win to be bowl eligible. But they ended up losing to Florida 21-24 after really coming out slow and trying to make a late game comeback. So they finished 5-7 with no bowl game. And Norvell wasn't officially on the hot seat, but he and almost every FSU fan knew that if he didn't get his act together and didn't make a bowl game in his 3rd year, that he would be on the hot seat after his 3rd year. So after the season, he decided to pick up guys to help with the next year's team like Jared Verse and Johnny Wilson. And Wilson's help was much needed, as Florida State lacked the depth and the talent on the outside. And another good thing about the 2021 season is that they found out Jordan Travis should have been a full-time starter, as they no longer need to bring in a transfer quarterback or a recruit. And the 3rd year of Norvell's tenure at Florida State started off well, as they played Duke Cuisine, beating them 47-7. But the problem is that the next game was the real test, as they played LSU, who just hired new head coach Brian Kelly. And that game started off slow, but in the second half, both teams started to pick up the pace. And LSU had a chance to win in the final seconds, but luckily Florida State blocked a game-winning field goal. And after that game, it was kind of a consensus that, hey, Mike Norvell isn't going to be on the hot seat at the end of this season, and Florida State has a real chance to win the ACC. And what made this even better is that after the LSU game, Florida State then beat Louisville, and then after beating Louisville, they beat Boston College. But after those games would come the true test, as they would play Wake Forest, NC State, and Clemson, all ranked teams. But sadly, Florida State dropped all 3 games to them. And to throw salt in the wound, 2 of the 3 games were at home. But the good thing is, after those bad 3 games, for the next 5 games of the regular season, Florida State would go 5-0. And to add on to that, they beat rivals Miami and Florida. And for the first time ever in Mike Norvell's coaching tenure, they will be ranked inside the college football playoff top 25. And at the end of the season, they got to play Oklahoma in the Cheez-It Bowl, in which they beat Oklahoma 35-32, ending the season with a 10-3 record. And all that recruiting and building Norvell did the first 2 years was going to pay off in 2023, as before the season started, they were expected to return 7 starters on offense and 9 starters on defense. But Norvell knew that wasn't enough, as he went out in the transfer portal and got an amazing talent of players. As Norvell was able to recruit Jaheim Bell, a tight end from South Carolina, Keon Coleman, a star wide receiver from Michigan State, Ventrell Cephas, a star cornerback from Virginia, and he even recruited Peter Warrick II, which is the son of Peter Warrick, FSU legend. And to add on to that, FSU decided to give Norvell an extension through 2029. And to start the 2023 season, Norvell and his Florida State squad will be playing LSU once again. And this matchup was when both teams were ranked inside the top 10, as Florida State was number 8 and LSU was number 5. This will also mark the first time for one of Mike Norvell's Florida State teams being ranked at the beginning of the season. And Florida State will handle LSU 45-24, as transfer Keon Coleman will have a breakout game, having 9 catches for 122 yards and 3 touchdowns. And with the offseason expectations and now coming into the season and beating LSU in the first game, this had some people thinking that, well, Florida State can maybe be championship contenders this year. Then after beating LSU, they beat Southern Mississippi, and then after that, they beat Boston College. But another test was coming up, as they were going to play Clemson in Death Valley. And this could mark Mike Norvell's first win against Clemson and FSU's first win against Clemson in 7 games. And that's exactly what happened, as Florida State beat Clemson 31-24, as Keon Coleman had the game-winning touchdown and Florida State had the game-winning stop. But then after that, they beat Virginia Tech and Syracuse. But their next tough matchup was coming up, as they had to play a Duke team that was ranked coming into that game being 5-1. And at halftime of that game, Duke was actually up 20-17. The only problem is, in the second half, Florida State scored 21 unanswered. Then after that game, they would beat Wake Forest and then be ranked number 4 in the college football playoffs. And after that game, they beat Pittsburgh and beat Miami, as throughout the regular season now, they only have 2 more games left. And with a win in these next 2 games and a win in the ACC championship game, they would be a lock for the college football playoffs. And this would be the first time since 2014 that Florida State has made the college football playoffs. And it's truly amazing to see what Mike Norvell has done at Florida State in just his 4th season, as he has brought Florida State back to glory and brought them back into championship contention, as now they have a chance at the end of the season to raise the college football playoff trophy. Well, there you guys have it for this video. Let me know what video y'all want me to do next.